Hi, I am Silveria Jacobs, and this is the informational program of the National Alliance. In today's program, we will be featuring highlights of the Congress of the National Alliance, which was held on Sunday, April 13, 2020, at the Bel Air Community Center.
To the polls, girl, follow the alliance.
At this time, for our next upcoming election, God has a plan for this nation. A plan that our leaders and we, the people of this nation, need to know. It isn't game as usual. The decisions that our leaders make, they need to be held accountable that God has destined them to be leaders. And in their leadership, they need to constantly inquire from God, what is His plan for the nation? Because He is King of kings and Lord of lords, He sets up kingdom and He puts them down. And I'm appealing to the party that I'm connected with, that it is not game as usual. And the delegates putting themselves, or the members, our leaders putting themselves on the split, it's about St. Martin. Because bear in mind, when we read the news, the nations are shaking. Because God shakes every nation, including St. Martin. Because He has a plan and a purpose. Now I have someone shared with me what an individual wrote, and I have taken a bit of it because sometimes I don't want to reinvent the wheel. But as we come before God, there are some things we have to repent of. We as adults, we as the leaders, we have to leave a legacy behind for the next generation. And we have to show them as the older heads that we can and will begin to do things differently. Because if not, God is just going to push some aside and He'll begin to raise a lot of young people that He will teach to hear His voice for what He has for this nation.
Ladies and gentlemen, my intention this afternoon is to share a few thoughts with you about the importance of rebuilding from within. Could everyone please repeat that?
Rebuilding from within.
That sounds so good. Rebuilding from within can occur on different levels. However, for the sake of time, we will confine our interest to two complementary and critical priorities, namely, rebuilding from within the party, and secondly, rebuilding within the party's grassroots support. Before I get into the quote, meat and potatoes of the topic, it is necessary to share a few passing observations and a very brief appraisal of our socio-economic conditions and experience since the dissolution of the Netherlands Antilles some 4 years ago. Generally speaking, if you were to take an opinion poll today, it might reveal that a large group strongly agree that the current situation on Swaliga leaves much to be desired and raises more questions than answers. Some would assert that, in essence, the gap between what was promised is steadily widening between that which is actually delivered. From unjustifiable inequality, particularly in wealth distribution of material and social resources, the continued abuse of the 6-month contract, high cost of living, staggering unemployment, brutal austerity measures, and the overemphasis of attracting foreign investment instead of treating you and I as investors. At times, it almost seems as though justice and equality is reserved and enjoyed by a privileged few, and by the stroke of a pen, one group or class intent on securing political and economic power, makes long-term decisions at times to the detriment of countless unborn generations. That the fundamental needs of our society, natural environment, and cultural heritage is subordinated to the elusive quest for economic growth and modernity, so they say. Where there seems to be a calculated system of prejudice against, among others, mature and young professionals versus, quote, expats from developed countries on the labor markets, policies that discourage persons and families from purchasing their own home, and, of course, against small turnkey businesses. Regrettably, today, the common perception is that individuals either enter into public office merely to enrich themselves, go on many trips, earn a handsome salary, and above all, become above the law. Others will tell you, rather bluntly, that they will give their support to a particular candidate or party with the expectation to share in the spoils when they win. More importantly, in my view, there is no future for any society where the electorate is passive, fearful, distracted, in denial, or apolitical, and allows its representatives to rule with impunity. For to remain on this slippery path is to flirt and orchestrate our own demise. Apart from that, to a significant extent, public trust in the political process, confidence in Parliament and the executive branch is gradually deteriorating to the point where some persons are unreachable and disenfranchised. Quite frankly, some persons feel betrayed by the policy decisions and action of their party. More importantly, a growing section of the residents of St. Martin are not feeling any better off than they did a few years ago. Others strongly believe that many political parties are out of touch with the people and only come around once every 4 years. Remarkably, that's when we see them literally falling over themselves to whisper sweet nothings in your ear with the hope of occupying a prominent position within your mental space. Now, please don't get upset for me for saying this, but I think we need to have this discussion because sometimes the bitter is a healing, you know. Naturally, I would be remiss if I failed to mention that on the other side of the coin, some progress is being made within government with regards to education, sports, foreign relations, and closer ties with our northern counterparts. And who can ignore the laudable proposals for the Consumer Protection Agency and the Small Claims Court? And of course, the hard work of countless volunteers and NGOs that are making salient contributions within their respective community. Now, the intention of illuminating the aforementioned observations was to identify a few areas where the party must concentrate its energy and generate people-centered approaches and solutions to these experiences and alarming concerns. In better words, there is no time like now to rebuild from within. The act of rebuilding is a natural physiological process. The wonders of the human body testifies to this fact. According to research, the human body immediately goes to work on its own within seconds to heal fractures, injuries, or illnesses. Any doctors in the house that can attest to this? No? Equally mind-blowing to me at least is the fact that once a fractured bone is known to either return to its previous strength or to become in fact stronger than it was before. Besides that, persons that have been married longer than I have been alive will tell you that now and again it is important to go on a couples retreat. Everybody on point? To go on a couple retreat to rebuild and strengthen their relationship, rekindle passions, resolve conflicts, and set new objectives and priorities for the coming year. Failure to do such brings with it unhealthy stress, misunderstanding, and so much drama. Can the married men in here testify to this? I said, let me try. Who can ever forget the devastating effects of Hurricane Louis back in 1995? All right. You know, it was so cute because the international community had a moment of silence for St. Martin. You all remember that? They thought he was dead. The systematic can never return to its former glory. You know? Nations sent aircrafts to come and pick up the citizens, leave me here. But what did we do? What did we do? We rebuilt from within. And through our vision, our hard work, discipline, and determination, our people lifted this nation out of chaos.
Exactly.
So I dare say, if you want to see the sterling worth of St. Martin people, whether you're born here or belong here, put our backs against the wall. And we will show you exactly what time it is. Yeah? As a matter of fact, most of us here will bear witness to the fact that finding strength and courage to activate our innate and divine powers, particularly after our faith has been tested by a traumatic episode, is not only a form of rebuilding the soul, but also a spiritual act. Shall I repeat that one? Yes. As a matter of fact, most of us here will bear witness to the fact that finding the strength and courage to activate our innate and divine powers, particularly after our faith has been tested by a traumatic episode, is not only a form of rebuilding our soul, but also a spiritual act. You know why? And my father can correct me because you know, he's deep in the books, you know? Yeah. Because deep down inside, each of us wants to restore that which is ruined, replenish that which is depleted, strengthen that which is weakened, and set straight any perception of wrongdoing in our lives, community, in our relationship with the Creator. Distinguished invited guests, I feel the need to pause and state here that if my remarks come off a bit sermon-like, yet mixed with some nationalism, some activism, and some empowerment, it's because, as I said earlier, my father's a prophet, and I come from a family of staunch trade union members. All right? And I also feel the need to inform you that I come from a line of revolutionaries like Papa Godet, you know, and of course Mr. Selwyn Humphrey, who was part of Maurice Bishop's revolution in Grenada. So you guys need to know what you're dealing with, yeah? So the rest is history, I suppose. In some, rebuilding from within does not necessarily mean that something is wrong or that the party is weak. It simply means that we want more out of life and that we are driven by a higher purpose, higher expectations of ourselves and others, and continuously maximizing our potential, even if it means coming out of our comfort zone. Even if it means coming out of our comfort zone. You know why? Because we must, and our survival is at stake, we must develop a culture where we detest ignorance and smallness of imagination. How else are we to advance as a great people? Now, it is absolutely critical that we understand that in any democracy, the fundamental roles and functions of political parties includes, but is not limited to, developing policy proposals, energizing and mobilizing its members and supporters, ensuring the genuine and sustainable progress of the nation, and more importantly, it must govern in the best interest of the entire nation along the cherished principles of social equality, solidarity, and freedom for all, irregardless of race, gender, creed, religion, and even political affiliation. Ultimately, a stronger democracy where the people will decide not only once every 4 years, but on major social, economic, and political matters. But of course, this will depend on the energy, commitment, and determination and perseverance of the National Alliance Party. Okay. Y'all can clap, that's all right. Ladies and gentlemen, as a nation state, the political landscape and culture and developments on St. Martin is dynamic and continuously changing. Therefore, it is imperative that this party, the National Alliance, if it is to survive and expand and remain relevant, must constantly reassess its energies and, if necessary, challenge its most cherished beliefs, re-examine unconscious attitudes, core values, and its modus operandi. Now let me pause here and point out that this again does not suggest that the party is hemorrhaging as political pundits like to point out. You know, because sometimes rebuilding requires that we step back, close our eyes and look within, and conduct that internal analysis. Such an analysis is always critical because it sharpens our focus, it helps us to identify opportunities and strengthen our resolve. If not, we might find ourselves constantly in motion, but not making progress. Worse yet, we might be furthering the objectives of other persons that might not have sincere interest for us. So, everybody look at them like this. Just turn to your partner for me, please, and tell them we are rebuilding from within. We are rebuilding from within. As an organization, it means that a higher priority must be placed on continuously engaging and raising the political intelligence of the community, especially its supporters, those at home and those abroad. You know, as a former student, when I lived in the Netherlands, losing sleep, trying to follow the public debates, sometimes we also felt that we was excluded from basically everything, you know, so we must include them into the fold also. Of course, be it in or out of an election year. This in itself may also serve as an effective method to boost grassroots participation, ensure growth targets, and establish deeper roots in our society. Undoubtedly, the outcomes of such action will crystallize into a shared purpose, vision, and culture of trust, which are all vital ingredients for cooperation and collaboration. Additionally, rebuilding from within comes with a mandate and must rest on a conviction that we must breed what we need. Let me pause here. How much people, I mean, some of us in Hello Boy enough to remember. They had this group from California that had a song, Breed What You Need. It was a very popular hit. But what it basically said in essence is that we must reduce our dependency on external aid, expertise, and even court the goodwill of others, and instead rely on our own strengths, competencies, and material resources in order to advance the program of the party and consciously influence situations to produce desired outcomes. So in better words, if we need visionary servant leadership with integrity, capable of navigating this country through the uncharted waters of the next decade or the next century, then we must produce them now. It's just as simple. If we feel that at times media houses or whoever is not accurately reflecting the thoughts and sentiments and position of the party, then we need to create our own. There's no other way. We have no more reason to be making excuses. We're living in a very exciting time with the internet, with instant communication, with international networks. We have access to all of the resources that we need to advance as a people. But yet, at times, I'm of the opinion that we are afraid of our own greatness. So, as I was said earlier, it's always good to follow the press and the public debates and read the various reports. But at some point, we must be cognizant of the urgent need to develop and expand party-based communications to ensure that the message is articulated and image is jealously protected from assaults from insincere corners of our society. Most of all, it is to ensure that the general public does not forget. It is to ensure that the general public does not forget the party's past achievements, position on various issues and initiatives. Brothers and sisters, we as a people must understand the urgency of now. Nature does not reward consumers, only producers. So, and then again, of course, self-reliance and taking initiative has its own nuance. The question that begs to be asked is, what type of membership and party is needed to be? From a grassroots perspective, rebuilding from within demands the focused application of our material and mental resources and energies. It also means that sooner rather than later, all behaviors that weaken the party's resolve must be eliminated. This includes fending off base desires such as envy, jealousy, individualism, resisting the subtle intrigues, opportunism, and greed. It is unnatural and counterintuitive to proclaim that we love this nation, yet engage in such odious, heinous, and destructive behaviors. More importantly, it must be faithfully understood that such tendencies has been the constant enemies of our progress as a collective. It follows logically, therefore, that there is an urgent need to continually develop behaviors, a subculture, values, and an institution to advance the collective interests of the group and so the nation. I doubt anyone in the audience can or would deny that. In order to be effective, supporters must be dedicated, passionate, energetic, and informed, ready to submerge one's personal interest to that of the party's principles and program. So, I'm not saying what I'm saying is that when you are committed to the principles of the party, right, there is less chance of us swaying or running or doing things that we shouldn't be doing. Please do not underestimate the importance of your role, since your input, commitment, and experience on the front lines assists the party with invaluable facts and at times viable alternatives regarding important policy decisions. You will agree then that to place all responsibility squarely on the broad shoulders of the party, of the board, is unrealistic and unsustainable. The life and future success of the party cannot hinge upon its leadership alone. As supporters and potential members, you will have the awesome task and responsibility to contribute towards decision-making, governance, development, and execution of sustainable programs tailored to the needs of your respective community. It is up to each and everyone to make a salient contribution towards this end. This means that more will be expected, and everyone might be called upon to double their efforts very soon. In my view, if the party is to expand members and supporters, must religiously contribute towards financing party initiatives. What did the next leaf drop? As my aunt would often tell me, quote, manna doesn't drop from the sky anymore. Such funding must not only contribute towards the political campaigns, but must be earmarked for regular community-based initiatives and investing in upgrading the technical and must be used for upgrading the technical skills of supporters and volunteers, thereby allowing them to make a more meaningful contribution to the party and ultimately the nation. Me and my uncle, we just talk a lot, Uncle George. In our discussion sometime, especially when I was up in Holland, and my uncle would encourage me to complete my studies, he would always tell me that 1 day is a donation to eternity, and 1 hour is a contribution to the future. So I apply this maxim also in this particular situation. Now, to the candidates, I am appealing to the candidates when I say that rebuilding from within calls for discipline and devotion to study and obedience to duties to party principles and demand of your people. You have set out to make a lasting and positive impact on your society and must prove yourself worthy of our hopes and represent our highest aspirations, desires, and ambitions of the masses. Yes, this includes even those that did not vote for you, even those that have made a career to slander the party and your person, even those who pray for your demise. You are charged with the task of protecting and elevating the standard of living and the quality of life for generations to come. Therefore, you must be vigilant always. Therefore, you must be vigilant always and constantly watch your behavior. My advice to you is to always seek the counsel of your most trusted elders. As the saying goes, an elder sees further than a person on a hill. This might sound peculiar, but I want to impress upon the candidates in particular, not only to measure your victory in terms of votes cast in your favor and seats acquired in this election, but also by the tangible results that you render to the next 2 generations. This is the call of the new Swahilian statesmen and stateswomen. I don't like the term politician too much. I don't think it accurately embodies what we are striving for or how we see ourselves, because words have such an impact on our mental, you can't believe. And especially in these times when the word politician is associated with so much negative connotation. We must change that. By now, I hope that all your doubts and fears have melted away, and you have become resolved in your heart and spirit. As someone told me, God and fear cannot occupy the same place at the same time. So know what you're doing. Each of you must contribute to the advancement of good governance and a social agenda that is innovative, inclusive, and sustainable. Most of all, it must be anchored in our culture, heritage, experiences, and aspirations as a people, and not to a particular class or family. On behalf of my family, I wish you all much spiritual strength from the Almighty Creator, and may you jump over, walk around every obstacle, but most important, may you get the strength to break every invisible chain, because there are many, there will be more. In closing, I do hope that these words have served its purpose to rekindle your purpose and recharge your courage and fortify your spirit in preparation for the following weeks and months. If we aim to rebuild this great nation and return its past glory to future generations, then to some extent, rebuilding from within is an imperative. We must understand, we must overstand, and we must understand, and constantly keep this in the uppermost corner of our minds. Long live the people of St. Martin, forward ever, backward never, one God, one aim, one destiny.
Thank you for watching. We have come to the end of our informative program for today, and we hope that the information that you got helpful in helping you make a choice coming election. Feel free to ask na@gmail.com is our email address. So send us your questions and we will provide the answers. Feel free to ask NA. You will soon be able to access information as well from our website at naparty.sx. naparty.sx. This has been the informative program of the National Alliance, and I am Silveria Jacobs.
To the polls, girl, follow the alliance. Down the road, and we go vote, girl.